Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro held a video conference with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Friday to mark the 80th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the nations. Brazil commemorates 7 years since the assassination of Councilwoman Marielle Franco in Rio de Janeiro. And the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas reaffirmed its readiness to release a U.S. detainee and 4 other corpses of dual nationalities. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Now we begin with the information. On Friday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro held a video conference with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to mark the 80th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries. During this video conference, the two leaders strengthened their bond of brotherhood and defined a path and a north for the interests of both nations. The two leaders also reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening the strategic alliance in all fields. Particular emphasis was placed on the political, economic, and diplomatic fields. Both leaders discussed their shared vision of building a more just and multipolar world order, with Venezuela joining the BRICS group.
And now we are entering the phase when our relations between Russia and Venezuela are growing even more mature, when we start trusting each other more and more, because our stance on the strategic vision of the world development, of the global development, is coinciding, and we have a practical understanding that a new world is possible. We know that it is possible to build relations, to develop relations based on mutual respect. We know that it is possible, and as you know, we work jointly to continue with this progress, with the progress along this path. And we will join you with the celebrations of the 80th.
And also during the video conference, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro expressed his hope to sign a strategic partnership agreement that will further strengthen bilateral relations with the Russian nation.
And I hope that we will have a chance to sign an agreement during the days, an agreement on strategic partnership between Russia and Venezuela that will help us bring our relations to the highest level possible. Our relations across the board, as we've mentioned, in trade and economy, in financial matters, in banking matters, our cooperation in energy that is going to grow even stronger, our cooperation in industry and public health care and transportation and agriculture.
In this context, Russian President Vladimir Putin reaffirmed the search of both nations for a beneficial cooperation without external interference in internal affairs.
Russia and Venezuela adhere to similar positions on many matters of the global agenda, on many items of the global agenda. We strive together to establish a more just world order. We promote the principles of the sovereign equality of the states, of mutually beneficial cooperation without any interference from the outside into the domestic affairs.
And the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, celebrated in this context the 80th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Russia and Venezuela. During the event, the Venezuelan head of state pointed out that he held a video conference within the framework of the 80th anniversary of diplomatic relations with Russia, established on March 14, 1945. Likewise, the Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed his satisfaction with the development of bilateral relations and the interest shown in their pursuit of mutual respect. President Maduro celebrated as well the Day of Artisanal Fishermen and Fish Farmers, who play a crucial role in the country's economy and food sovereignty, noting that it is celebrated every March 14th after the date was declared in 2010 by Eternal Commander Hugo Chavez.
Que el día de hoy Today we are marking a milestone because we have already indicated the will and the decision between President Putin and President Nicolas Maduro, between the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Russian Federation to sign very soon the integral strategic alliance of cooperation and development between both countries, from now to the future.
We continue on topic as the Venezuelan government presented a wreath at the historical monument of the National Pantheon on the occasion of this 80th anniversary of bilateral relations. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, together with the ambassador of the Russian Federation in Venezuela, Sergei Melik Badrasarov, and Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil, laid wreath at the sarcophagus of the liberator Simón Bolívar. This offering is part of the activities that have been taking place since early in the morning and represent this 80 years of diplomacy and bilateral cooperation between the countries. And the Simón Bolívar monument in Moscow was also filled with flowers in this anniversary of diplomatic relations between Venezuela and Russia and in homage to the South American liberator. During the event, the ambassador of Venezuela in Russia, Jesus Rafael Salazar, pointed out that in these 80 years of partnership, Caracas and Moscow have been at an accelerated pace forging the cooperation and will soon sign an agreement of strategic partnership at the highest level. He also emphasized that both countries reject unilateralism and share the vision of a multipolar world. And we see in Venezuela, but in other topic, Minister Diosdado Cabello presented more details in the ongoing investigation on far-right and fascist operations against the country. The Interior Minister provided more evidence in the so-called No Christmas operation led by the far-right, showing the leadership structure and how they plan to carry out terrorist actions against members of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces. The high official denounced narco-paramilitary operations to take control over the Caribbean Sea route. Cabello also reported the seizure of more than 5,000 kilos of drugs, striking a hard blow to Colombian drug trafficking. And in other international topics, the Kremlin announced that President Vladimir Putin held a telephone conversation with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to review the OPEC Plus cooperation for the global oil market balance. The leaders discussed Russian-Saudi cooperation within the framework of OPEC Plus, focused on sustaining the balance between supply and demand of crude oil, which meets the interests of producers and consumers. In his capacity of mediator, Prince bin Salman reaffirmed his commitment to the restoration of relations between Russia and the United States, as well as to the end of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In this regard, President Putin thanked Saudi Arabia for its efforts in bringing together representatives of Moscow and Washington. Now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. Brazil commemorates 7 years since the assassination of Councilwoman Marielle Franco in Rio de Janeiro. On this day, relatives and social movements will carry out various activities, starting with a commemoration, followed by a march through the city center and the Justice for Marielle and Anderson festival at the Olympic Pyre Square. To commemorate human rights defenders who was killed on her way home after taking part in a debate with young Afro-descendants, her car was attacked and she was shot several times in the head. For the murder, former military police officers Rony Lessa and Elcio Vieira were tried and sentenced to up to 78 years in prison for material authorship of this crime. And the Union of Workers from all economic sectors of Panama mobilized in rejection of Law 163 to reform the Social Security Fund approved by the legislative power. The Teachers Action Front and the National Confederation of Independent Trade Union Unity informed that they will keep up the struggle in the streets against this regulation, which is an attack against the working class and retirees. The Teachers Action Front accused the lawmakers and the government of generating these street actions with the approval of this regulation. In this regard, they announced that they will take action and call for a national strike. And the World Conference of Women Parliamentarians started in Mexico with the attendance of more than 300 participants from all over the world. President Claudia Sheinbaum led the inauguration at the National Palace, together with 350 women parliamentarians from 62 countries. The president highlighted that in 2024, full parity was achieved in the integration of the legislative bodies and the cabinet of the government of Mexico and called it an unprecedented achievement. This event will be held until Saturday, where the challenges of parity parliament will be addressed and testimonies, experiences, and achievements in politics of the participating women leaders will be shared. Moreover, the participants encouraged the idea that parity should not be the exception but the norm for women to be present in all decisions of the state and to set an example for future generations. And the International Telecommunications Union's World Youth Summit ended in Cuba on Thursday. The closing ceremony was attended by President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who called for the use of new technologies. Since March 11th, this important event held in Havana, the capital of the island, has discussed issues related to the reduction of the digital gaps between peoples, the introduction of new technologies, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, among other key issues. The closing ceremony was also attended by members of the Secretariat of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Cuba, Judith Rodriguez, the Minister of Communications, Mayra Arevich, and the Director of Telecommunications Development Office of the International Union, Cosmas Luxon.
Here, we have prioritized the active participation of youngsters in digital projects related to cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, big data management, the Internet of Things, among others, focused on the sustainable development of the country. We defend the ethical use of technologies and the protection of citizens' privacy. We advocate for international standards that regulate cyberspace and safeguard users' rights, especially in developing countries.
And in India, millions celebrate this Friday, March 14th, the traditional festival of colors, Holi. In the western Indian city of Ahmedabad, visitors flocked to the Swaminarayan temple, where they were sprinkled with colored water to the rhythm of traditional Gujarati music. This festival, which is also celebrated in Nepal and some Hindu communities in the world, symbolizes the end of the winter and the triumph of good over evil. The origin of Holi lies in Hindu mythology and tradition, which celebrates the divine love between the god Krishna and his consort Radha, representing rebirth and rejuvenation.
The atmosphere becomes amazing because of Holi. Anyone who attends the festival here forgets everything about life. They become one with the god. I cannot explain how happy we become after meeting the head priest here. We feel energized for the rest of the year by coming here. Everyone should come here to celebrate.
The festival is celebrated since the times of the gods. We have started playing Holi with natural colors, colors obtained from orange-colored flowers. We soak the flowers in water for over a month, then obtain the colors.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. The Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, reaffirmed its readiness to release a U.S. detainee and 4 corpses of dual nationalities. The decision is part of a proposal submitted by international mediators to resume negotiations on a ceasefire in Gaza and a prisoner exchange agreement. Hamas also confirmed its readiness for the releases and stressed its full acceptance to start negotiations in order to reach a comprehensive agreement on the issues related to the second phase of this process and urged Israel to fully comply with its commitments. In this regard, Hamas expressed its openness to any proposal that would contribute to the implementation of the ceasefire to guarantee the rights of the Palestinian people. And in Palestine, a new Israeli airstrike killed 4 people in the Gaza neighborhood of Zaytun shortly before the iftar meal, the 14th day of Ramadan. Local sources said the victims were collecting firewood near the Sabah al-Hadasseen school before the attack. It should be noted that with this action, the Israeli forces have violated the ceasefire 962 times throughout shelling and ground incursions, killing 116 civilians and wounding 490 since the beginning of March. In the past 13 days, the genocidal forces have prevented all humanitarian aid from reaching Gaza, intensifying a crisis of hunger and health care and human rights violations. And Israeli occupation forces launched an incursion into northern Gaza that took the life of a 3-year-old boy. Local media identified the child as Ahmad Hassam, who was hit to death in the Israeli aggression towards the Shayhat town. They further detailed that the boy was an orphan as his father was killed in the late 2023. In addition, outlets revealed the Israeli strike also left a woman seriously injured in the Israeli strike against northern Gaza. Overall, the Zionist army has been mounting attacks since the onset of the ceasefire deal on January 19th, amid claims made by Hamas Palestinian resistance movement that Israel refuses to enter the second phase of the agreement. And around 10,000 Syrians have crossed the border into Lebanon to escape the massacres promoted by the de facto government, which includes several leaders of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. The Lebanese authorities have reported that almost 10,000 Syrians have arrived in Akkar in the north of the country. The outbreak of violence that has ravaged the Syrian coast for a week and a half has left more than 1,400 dead, most of them members of the Alawite minority. And Arab nations called on states and organizations to take strong action against Tel Aviv after the United Nations fact-finding mission to the occupied territories concluded that Israel committed genocidal acts through the systematic destruction of sexual and reproductive health facilities. The Euro-Mediterranean Observatory for Human Rights assured that after this report, the Commission should call on states and organizations to force Israel to comply with its responsibilities under the Genocide Convention. They emphasized that inaction in the face of the crimes of the occupation has contributed directly and indirectly to the ongoing genocide. The mission's report is conclusive about the crimes of the occupation. And we go now to other topics. It has been denounced that around 47 United Nations humanitarian aid trucks remain stranded at the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Afghan media reported that the United Nations World Food Program unit had warned that the trucks contained 200,000 tons of humanitarian aid, including food. The aid had been held at the Tokram Pass since February 21st due to the conflict between Taliban forces and Pakistani troops. The Afghanistan-Pakistan Joint Chamber of Commerce announced a bilateral business meeting to seek the opening of the border crossing to resume trade and humanitarian aid access. And the Chinese government sent a message reiterating that its country will not allow forces to undermine the unity of the mainland and the Chinese region of Taiwan. The spokesman for the Taiwan Affairs Office of the State Council, Chang Binghua, stressed that it will not tolerate any secessionist activity inside or outside that island territory. He also warned that if these forces dare cross this red line, firm actions will be taken. Furthermore, Chan reminded that the Taiwan region is an inalienable part of China and any separatist attempt is doomed to failure. And the public health sector in Spain continues to deteriorate 5 years after the COVID-19 pandemic. Health personnel said that the situation within hospitals had not improved, reporting a shortage of stretchers as well as long waiting lists for medical appointments. Public health care in Andalusia has declined in the primary care system, which mainly affects the elderly. The health workers' unions are calling for mobilizations on April 5th, condemning the government's lack of response to the healthcare collapse. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.